9 spine-chilling house horrors revealed. I moved in, then unexplained nightmares began. Jessica had barely settled into her new home when the unsettling nightmares began. Each night, shadows danced across her walls, shaping into ghostly figures that lurked with eerie patience. As she drifted off, the familiar sounds of laughter from the kids next door morphed into haunting echoes in her mind. Clenching her eyes shut, she'd awake with her heart pounding, the remnants of screams trapped on her lips. The charming exterior of the Oakwood Hills neighborhood drew her in, yet under its sunny facade lay a heavy weight of pressure and hidden fears. She was relieved to have a place to call home for herself, Mia, and Ethan. But every door creak and whisper of wind rattled her nerves and sent her heart racing. Jessica could feel something wrong, and it wasn't just the unease she carried for her children. The first real jolt came when her neighbor Ron, the self-proclaimed handyman, sidled up with an unsettling grin. "I can fix those stairs for you," he said, his eyes boring into hers like he was inspecting a prize cow. Jessica thanked him, trying to ignore the unease creeping up her spine. But how could she shake off the feeling of being watched? Days turned into nights filled with tangled dreams of shadowy silences and distant, childlike laughter that twisted into screams. Her resolve was crumbling, breaking under the weight of her nights. "I'm not crazy," she told herself, fingers trembling as she poured coffee one morning. Just then, the phone buzzed, and she recoiled. It was the police she had called in desperation. "Ma'am, you should be just fine," the officer chuckled dismissively, and Jessica felt the urge to scream at the wall of indifference. The more she shared her fears, the more they painted her as the worried mother with too much time. Alone in her block of tightly transfixed neighbors, Jessica's trust turned into aggressive caution. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With the echoes of Ron's laughter buried in her mind, she spent sleepless nights searching for answers. There were whispers, old wives' tales about families that vanished without a trace. Children who never returned from their playtime. Her own innocent children ran and hopped through this maze of nightmares, oblivious to the sinister tales tangled in the very air they breathed. One night, a tempest raged outside, the howling winds wrapping her home in a cloak of despair. She made up her mind. Enough was enough. She needed to confront Ron, to demand he back off. But as she opened the door, the air was thick with tension, and his laughter echoed harshly in the storm. Holding Mia and Ethan tight, she felt the truth ricochet in her mind. Whatever horror loomed in the shadows wasn't just in her dreams anymore. It was here, lurking, and maybe, just maybe, it had her son again. With racing thoughts and throbbing dread, an icy grip of reality hit her. How deep did Ron's secrets run? And what of the dark secrets this house concealed? Desperation clung to her. The danger was close, too close. The storm lashed against the windows, rattling the glass and sending chills skittering down Jessica's spine. Rain poured relentlessly, cascading from the eaves like a dark waterfall, each drop a reminder that something unnerving lay just beyond the threshold. Jessica stood at the doorway, heart racing, mind whirling with visions of the shadows. "Mia, Ethan, stay close," she whispered urgently, her voice trembling. The sound of her words felt small against the roar of the tempest. She knew Ron was out there, somewhere in the storm, lurking like the malevolent force she felt creeping through her home. She couldn't shake the sensation that he had carefully studied her every move, like a hunter watching his prey. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the backyard, startling her. The children looked up, eyes wide with fear. They rushed to Jessica, clinging to her legs, seeking refuge from the gathering darkness. "What was that, Mommy?" Mia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, sweetie," Jessica replied, forcing a smile that felt like shattered glass on her lips. She wanted to be strong, but the shadows were closing in, wrapping around her like a shroud. She moved deeper into the house, shutting the door tightly. The thud of the wind outside felt like angry fists against the walls, urging her to confront the secrets within. In the kitchen, the clattering of dishes echoed through the stillness, and Jessica's heart dropped. Had she not secured everything? A flicker of movement caught her eye. She turned, half expecting to see Ron's grinning face staring back at her. The kitchen felt alive, but it was a treacherous sort of light that made her skin crawl. "Ethan, come here," she called, her heart sinking at the thought of anything happening to her boy. He obeyed immediately, but more out of instinct than understanding. As she scanned the room, a photo on the wall caught her attention. It was an old picture of the previous owners, their smiles frozen in time, eyes gleaming with a strange intensity that made her stomach churn. She approached it, feeling an urge to unearth the truth held in the frame. Just as she reached for it, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a split second before the ancient bulbs sputtered back to life. When the light returned, Jessica's blood turned to ice. The picture was different. The family appeared distorted, horror etched in their faces, twisted as if in agony. Her hands shook violently, dropping the frame back onto the wall, where it hung crookedly. "Mom, what's wrong?" Ethan's small voice broke through her distress. With a shaky breath, she turned to him but caught movement out of the corner of her eye. There was something outside, a figure moving stealthily through the chaos of the storm. Was it Ron? Her instincts screamed at her to gather her children and flee to safety, but something held her rooted in place. She had to know. Just then, the laughter echoed again, eerily similar to a child's, yet tinged with something other than joy. It danced through the house, slithering into her ears. Each chuckle felt like ice water running down her spine, rippling under skin. "No!" Jessica shouted, pressing her palms against her ears to block it out. "Stop! Just stop!" But the laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, more chaotic, filling the air with a cacophony of terror. She could see Mia tremble, the horror reflecting in her wide eyes. Jessica felt the walls close in, fear bubbling inside her like a rising tide. "Mom!" Mia cried, pressing closer against Jessica's legs, her own small hands quaking. With adrenaline surging, Jessica squeezed their hands tightly. "We have to get out now!" They bolted for the door, ready to escape into the night. But the moment she pulled it open, her breath caught. Ron stood there, the rain pouring down him like a dark cloak, eyes glinting with a twisted glee as he tossed something in the air repeatedly, a small, dirty ball. The same ball Ethan always took outside. "Looking for this?" Ron taunted. Jessica's heart dropped, dread clawing at her throat. What had he really done? Was her son in danger? With Mia and Ethan shivering beside her, questions surged through her mind. "Run!" she yelled, shoving them past Ron and into the rain-soaked world. But beyond him, shadows twisted and sputtered toward them, merging from the darkness. Jessica turned, panic flooding her veins, realizing the storm was more than just nature's wrath. Her nightmare was about to awaken in reality. Could she protect her children from the horrors that dripped from the shadows, or were they already ensnared? What secrets did the storm hold, and was it too late to escape? The rain pummeled down, soaking Jessica as she pushed her children ahead of her like a protective shield. Heart racing, each thud of their feet against the slick ground echoed in her ears, a reminder that danger was nipping at their heels. She glanced back at Ron. His figure loomed large, a grotesque silhouette framed by flashes of lightning. It was as if he fed off their terror, a twisted amusement painting his features. "Keep going!" she shouted over the storm's roar, urging Mia and Ethan further away from their home. The wind howled like a banshee, making it difficult to discern sounds. Every rustle in the bushes felt like an approaching predator, and Jessica's instinct screamed for her to hurry. Ahead, the trees swayed ominously, shadows dancing between the trunks. They could escape into the woods, but fear gripped her. What if they got lost? Was Ron following? She could almost feel his eyes boring into her back, sharp and unyielding. Suddenly, Ethan stopped. "Mommy!" he called, his voice small against the chaos. She turned, panic gripping her as she saw him staring into the shadows, frozen like a deer in headlights. Ethan, move! Now! But the boy stood still, transfixed. His eyes widened as something shifted in the darkness, an undeniable shape looming closer, creeping out of the trees. Jessica's heart plummeted. Mia, hold on to him, she ordered, rushing back to snatch Ethan's arm. But as she did so, a shriek pierced through the rain, sharp and unmistakably human. The sound sent a bolt of ice through her veins. Run! She screamed, more frightened than before. With renewed urgency, they pushed forward, weaving between the trees, branches clawing at their clothes. But something tripped Jessica. She stumbled forward, falling onto the damp ground. Panic shot through her as she scrambled, trying to regain her footing. The thunder rumbled violently overhead, and for a moment, she felt utterly alone. Mommy! Mia cried, her voice trembling with fear. I'm right here! Jessica shouted back, pulling herself up and glancing around wildly. Then she saw a fleeting silhouette darting between the trees. The hairs on her neck stood on end as the chilling laughter echoed again. It was Tehran, not this time. This was something else, something sinister. The laughter turned sharp, turning her stomach. Mia! Ethan! She yelled, spotting them just a few feet away. Relief flooded her, but as she rushed towards them, a gust of wind barreled past, and the laughter grew, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She grabbed Mia's hand, locking eyes with Ethan. They needed to get to safety, but a gut-wrenching realization dawned on her. Even if they escaped the storm, what about the shadows? What about Ron? Follow me, she directed, leading them further into the dark embrace of the trees, away from the path they once knew. The laughter faded momentarily, leaving an unsettling silence, a silence that seemed to scream. As they pushed deeper, the air grew thick with an unnatural heaviness. Jessica gasped as they stumbled upon a small clearing, a thin sliver of moonlight illuminating an old, decrepit cabin that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Its windows were cracked and dark, but when they looked closer, a shadow moved behind the glass. Do you think we can hide in there? Mia whispered, her breath ghosting in the cool night air. The thought sent waves of dread crashing over Jessica. But the laughter was growing again, close enough now that it felt like a tangible thing, wrapping around her throat. I don't know. We might not have a choice, she replied, eyes darting towards the tree-line. Time slipped away, and with it, her courage waned. Mommy, Ethan's voice trembled, and in that moment she understood. If they didn't go inside, whatever lurked in the storm was coming for them. But what if the cabin held secrets more horrifying than the storm? What if it was part of the nightmare waiting to consume them all? As thunder rumbled ominously, a decision had to be made. Jessica looked back at her children, hearts pounding together in a frantic rhythm. Okay, let us go. With figures closing in around them and an impending sense of doom, they stepped towards the darkness of the cabin, unaware of what lay inside. What awaited them in the dark corners of that decrepit structure? Only echoes of past horrors and the relentless question of whether they would ever find their way back to safety. The door creaked open as Jessica hesitated on the threshold, the darkness inside the cabin beckoning like a gaping maw. Cold air rushed from within, laced with the distinct odor of mold and decay. She shivered not just from the chill, but from the sense of dread that curled around her heart. Mommy, I don't like it, Mia said, her voice barely a whisper, trembling like the branches outside. Neither do I, Jessica admitted, her throat dry. But the laughter from the trees was too close now, and they had no choice. Come on, she urged, pushing her children ahead of her as they stepped inside. The interior was dim, with only faint outlines of furniture visible and the sparse moonlight trickling through grimy windows. Jessica's heart sank as she took in the sight a rickety table in the center, mismatched chairs that looked ready to crumble, and rusted tools lining the walls, their purpose long forgotten. Let us find a place to hide, she murmured, her voice strained with urgency. She moved towards a small doorway leading to another room, her pulse quickening. There was something lurking in every corner. Shadows seemed to be alive, twisting and stretching toward her like greedy hands. Ethan grabbed her leg. "Stay close, Mommy." "I will. I promise," she vowed, squeezing his shoulder for reassurance. Just as she went to continue, a loud bang echoed from somewhere deep within the cabin, like something heavy falling. Jessica's breath hitched. "What was that?" "Mommy, I'm scared," Mia whimpered, her wide eyes darting around the room. "Me too, sweetie," Jessica admitted, trying to sound brave. "But we have to be quiet." The cabin felt more like a tomb than a refuge. Every creak of the floorboards seemed magnified in the thick silence, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. She pressed her ear to the wall. There was a faint sound, distant yet familiar, the laughter. It echoed through the wood, twisting and distorting as if it were being mocked by the very structure they sought to hide in. "Shh!" Jessica hissed, afraid to breathe too loudly. She scanned the room for another means of escape, for a way to stay a step ahead of whatever menace was lurking. "There is a trapdoor," Mia suddenly whispered, pointing to the floorboards near the table. "I saw it when we came in." "Are you sure?" Jessica asked, her stomach knotting with dread. "In the dark, Mommy." "I saw it," the girl insisted, her voice shaking. Jessica felt a deep pit open in her gut. If they went down there, they could be trapped. Yet staying up here felt like inviting danger freely into their lives. "Okay, let us check it out. But stay together," she ordered, her voice firmer than she felt. They moved towards the table, lifting the edge of a corner board. The trapdoor was indeed there, its handles cold against Jessica's fingertips. With a deep breath, she pulled it open. A faint scent of damp earth wafted up from below. Its dark Ethan's protest cracked the air. "Don't worry, we'll be right there with you," Jessica reassured, though her own voice quivered. In that moment, just as they prepared to descend, the laughter erupted anew, louder and more twisted than before. It came from all around them, echoing off the walls, and Jessica's heart raced. The sound was no longer just laughter, it felt like a warning, a portent of things to come. "Mommy, please!" Ethan begged, eyes wide with fear. Jessica looked back at him and Mia, their innocence aching inside her chest. The decision loomed over her like the storm outside. "Stay close," Jessica ordered, gripping her children's hands tightly. And as they stepped down into the pit of darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into the heart of a nightmare. The air thickened around them with every whispered thought, that laughter morphing into something far more sinister. What awaited them in the shadows below? What horrors had the cabin promised to protect, or perhaps unleash? The darkness swallowed them whole, a fitting embrace for the secrets buried deep within the walls. Would they emerge from the depths, or would they be lost forever in the chilling laughter that now echoed in their minds? The trapdoor creaked ominously as they descended, the dark space below swallowing the last hint of light from the cabin. Jessica's heart thudded loudly in her chest, pulsing with each step they took down the never-ending rungs of the ladder. The wood felt moist and unwelcoming beneath her hands, slick with unseen filth. Mommy, it's really dark," Ethan stammered, close to tears. "I know," Jessica whispered, forcing calm into her voice as she squeezed his hand tighter. "We can't turn back now." The cold air enveloped them as they stepped onto the earth floor below. Their breaths misted in the stale air, cut only by the unsettling laughter that seemed to echo from the very walls around them, taunting, beckoning. "Can you see anything?" Mia's voice trembled, the fear palpable in the air. "No," Jessica admitted, straining her eyes, trying to make out shadows lurking in the gloom. She fumbled in her pocket, her fingers brushing against the tiny flashlight she always carried. With a flick, she pierced the darkness, the beam illuminating dust-blanketed crates and piles of debris. Each surface was draped in a gloomy layer of neglect, amplifying the feeling of abandonment. And then, for a moment, the laughter ceased. The silence that replaced it was thick enough to choke on. Jessica's heart raced as she heard a rustling sound in the far corner, a movement that was too soft to be human but too deliberate to be wind. "Did you hear that?" she hissed, panic slicing through her composure. Mia nodded, squeezing her brother's arm. Jessica turned to them, desperation clear in her eyes. "Stay close, okay? We can't separate." They moved forward, inching through the dim light, her pulse hammering in her ears. As they approached the source of the sound, she felt cold fingers of dread curling around her spine. The flashlight flickered, sending shadows dancing across the cluttered space, and in one fleeting moment of illumination, Jessica saw a figure crouched low against the ground, only half visible. "It's just a shadow!" Mia squeaked, but Jessica didn't believe it. Her instincts screamed for her to run. "Back up!" she ordered, her grip tightening around her children as she began to retreat, the beam from her flashlight betraying the space around them. The figure remained motionless for a heartbeat, then, impossibly, began to rise. "What is it? Mommy, what is it?" Ethan's voice cracked. His grip was a vice on her arm. "Shh! I don't know," Jessica breathed, her eyes locked onto the silhouette, now stretching upwards, as if drawn by some unseen force. Then, with a rush, it lunged, and for a moment, there was nothing but chaos, screams mingling with the laughter deafening her thoughts. The flashlight flickered one last time before plunging them back into darkness. "Run!" Jessica shouted, her maternal instincts overtaking her fear. They bolted back toward the ladder, hearts racing, but before they could reach it, the shadows closed in like a blanket, wrapping around them, pinning their legs to the earth. The laughter returned, louder now, echoing like an avalanche, drowning out any chance of hope. Jessica's breath quickened, panic flooding her veins. The last thing she recalled before losing herself to the darkness was a pair of glowing eyes, hunger in their depths, a promise of torment just a breath away. No escape. Just darkness, and then silence. When Jessica opened her eyes, she lay alone in the suffocating stillness. The laughter was gone, replaced by an eerie calm that sent shivers dancing over her skin. "Mommy?" A soft voice pierced the quiet, and her heart sank. "Mia? Ethan?" But all she heard was the deepening silence, like the cabin itself had consumed them whole. What had become of her children? Had they vanished into the dark? And what lurked in the shadows waiting for her next move? The dread clawed at her insides as she pushed herself to her feet. She had to find them. Would she brave the darkness again, or had she unknowingly stepped into a nightmare from which neither she nor her children could wake? Jessica's eyes adjusted to the dimly lit space, but all she could see was a thick blanket of smoke swirling around her. It clung to her like a shroud and stung her eyes. As she leaned forward, a nauseating smell hit her, a mix of decay and something metallic. "Ethan! Mia!" she shouted, her voice echoing off the damp walls. It crumbled and faded, desperate and small. The darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating, as if the very air was intent on silencing her. Her heart thundered a relentless drumbeat against fear. She could feel the floor beneath her feet, uneven and cold, like a grave. She took a cautious step, then another, listening intently for any sound that would lead her to her children. Suddenly, a soft whimper cut through the heavy silence, followed by a choking kid's sob. It came from somewhere deeper in the shadows, curling around her like tendrils. "Mommy!" The sound was heartbreakingly faint, but it was enough to drive her onward. "Stay put, I'm coming!" she called, hoping that her voice would guide them back. Each step was measured, like walking through a minefield. She held her breath, barely making a sound, but the air crackled with anticipation. The laughter that once tormented her had faded, yet it felt like something was watching her, its eyes boring into her back. Then she stumbled into something, a hard edge, a crate. She grasped onto it for balance. The flashlight flickered back to life just enough to reveal a wall covered in grotesque carvings that looked like faces twisted in horror. She recoiled, scrubbing her palm across her eyes as the images twisted in her mind, scratching at the edge of her sanity. "Mommy! Help!" Ethan's voice rang out again, closer now, more frantic. Jessica felt a surge of adrenaline and shoved through the pile blocking her path. The sound of rustling fabric and another pained cry made her blood run cold. "Ethan! I'm right here!" But the moment she shouted, the room plunged back into darkness. The light went out with a yelp as if it had been snuffed by a dark hand. Breath quickened, panic looming. Her pulse surged as the darkness thickened around her. "Mommy, where are you?" Mia cried from somewhere near her left. "Stay still." Jessica tried to keep her voice firm, though it cracked. "I'm coming." She reached out into the abyss, feeling for the children, her heart racing faster than her thoughts. Just then, something cold brushed against her ankle, moving with terrifying purpose. Jessica jolted back, her screams swallowed by the thick air. The laughter cascaded around her again, a twisted symphony echoing from every corner of the room. It was a deep, malevolent sound, as if the very walls were mocking her dread. "Mia! Ethan!" she screamed, struggling to stay calm, struggling to breathe. "Where are you?" But the air was too thick, the laughter filled her ears, mixing with the frantic pounding of her heart. What if they were gone? The shadows coiled tighter around her. The silence boiled with tension. She groped wildly, her fingers brushing against something smoother, colder. A hand clasped around her wrist, small and trembling. "And Mommy, it's so dark," Ethan whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. "Hold on to me," she said, trying to conjure courage from deep within, the terror of losing him renewing her focus. "I want to let go." But as they clung together in the claustrophobic darkness, she felt something else, a heavy presence moving toward them, a dreadful force that made her skin crawl. What was closing in on them now? Would they find another way out, or would the grasp of whatever had taken them plunge them deeper into its insatiable hunger? Ethan squeezed her wrist tighter, his small hand trembling like a leaf in the wind. Jessica could barely think over the pounding in her ears, the laughter echoing, wrapping around them like barbed wire. She wished she could see, wished for just one tiny flicker of light to dispel the dread that clung to her. "Ethan!" she whispered, pulling him closer. "We need to find your sister. I can't see her." "I can't," his voice cracked, and she could feel the warmth of tears on her palm. A wave of helplessness crashed over her, threatening to drag her under. The cold presence vibed through the air, growing heavier by the second. It smelled of earth and rot, and the metallic scent turned her stomach. The laughter morphed into a growl, low and rumbling, twisting her insides. "Stay close," she breathed, reckoning with the fear as it gnawed at her resolve. She edged sideways, trying to remember the way she had been. The darkness felt alive, hungry. They shuffled forward, Ethan's small footsteps barely making a sound. Jessica fought through the panic closing in around her. "Mia! Can you hear us?" she called again, her voice trembling. There was no reply, just that horrible, mocking laughter echoing all around. But then, a fresh sound pierced the darkness, a soft thump, like something shifting. Jessica froze, breath hitching. "Did you hear that?" Ethan nodded, his face pressed against her shoulder, fear radiating from him. "What if it's not Mia?" he gasped. Before she could speak, the air shifted again, a cold draft slithering through the room. Jessica felt her hair stand on end. Whatever was in the dark with them wasn't he just watching, it was waiting. "Mommy," Ethan said, and his voice trembled. Suddenly, Jess felt a rush, something brushed past her, fleeting but deliberate. A whisper, so chilling it wrapped around her throat, set her skin crawling. "Mommy!" "Mia!" Jessica cried out, her heart racing wildly, the fear erupting like a volcano. "I'm here!" The laughter surged in response, a cacophony of distorted joy that twisted around her, drowning her out. It surged and receded rhythmically, like choppy waves, menacing and unpredictable. Then, the darkness shifted, and Jessica saw it, a dim, ghostly glow flickering like a heartbeat in the far distance. The sight filled her with a mix of dread and hope. "That light, we have to get there," she declared, gripping Ethan's hand tighter. "Wait!" he squeaked as she pulled him forward. "What if it's a trap?" Every instinct screamed at her to consider his words, but the glow was beautiful, promising escape. "We have to try," she urged, dragging him toward the flicker. As they moved forward, the laughter morphed into a chorus of wails, 1,000 voices erupting in agony, shrieking out through the blackness. It was almost melodic in a twisted way, a dark lullaby that sent terror into her very marrow. Suddenly, the all-encompassing chill broke with an eruption of flame red and vibrant, licking the edges of the darkness. Jessica jerked backward, shielding Ethan as heat smacked her face. The glow was a fire, wild and chaotic surrounding them, spinning around like a hurricane of madness. In the flickering light, Jessica caught sight of Mia small and struggling against the flames at the far end. "Mia!" she screamed, though the shadows threatened to swallow her eyes and heart. But before she could race forward, a figure emerged from the dark, silhouetted against the fire, a towering creature, head cocked like a predator sizing up its prey. Its eyes glowed like embers, burning through the smoke. "Mommy," came Mia's voice again, a desperate plea filled with confusion and hurt. "No!" Jessica shouted, fury igniting her heart. She wouldn't let this thing take her children. She stepped forward, ready to challenge whatever it was. But fear tightened its grip. The creature moved closer, and as it did, everything went still. The fire flickered, the laughter faded, and the world held its breath. Now, a choice loomed before her. Would she charge toward Mia, risking everything? Or would they be swallowed up, vanishing into the terror that lurked behind those glowing eyes? In that moment of heart-stopping stillness, Jessica realized something crucial. The darkness revealed its ultimate hunger, and she had only just begun to scratch the surface of its insatiable appetite. Jessica's heart pounded like a war drum. The creature loomed larger, each step sending waves of dread crashing over her. She could sense Ethan's small frame vibrating against her, echoing her own anxiety. The chance to save Mia glinted tantalizingly close, yet the weight of the monster's gaze pressed heavily on her chest. It was like being trapped in a vice, every breath squeezing tighter. "Mia!" she shouted again, her voice breaking through the stillness, desperation clawing at her throat. The flames around her flickered and shifted, revealing glimpses of horror. Gnarled hands reached for Mia from within the fire, tongues of flame licking hungrily at the girl. They twisted, ready to snatch whatever was near. "Mommy!" Mia cried, her small voice cracking under the strain. Jessica took a hesitant step forward, but the figure drifted closer, blocking her path like a dark curtain drawn over light. "Do you see her?" Ethan whimpered, his terror palpable. His fingers slipped from Jessica's grip, desperately reaching for Mia. "Mommy, I'm scared." "No!" Jessica hissed, grounding herself. She couldn't let it take him too. She stepped back, feeling the horror of helplessness surge within her. "We cannot lose her. We must." The creature let out a low growl, like rolling thunder. The sound curled around her, thicker than the smoke choking the air. It stepped into the firelight, its body twisting and unraveling like smoke itself. Jessica could see the jagged shapes of its form, dark, slick, and grotesque in the eyes, burning bright as if lit from beneath. In that moment of unnatural clarity, Jessica saw the truth. What this creature reflected back was a darkness inside her mind. It fed off fear, pain, loss. She realized the laughter that echoed through the shadows didn't belong to her children, or the creature. It belonged to all the terrible memories she had tried to bury over the years. "Ethan, we have to," she began, but the laughter surged, drowning her thoughts, mocking her desperation. The flames danced like a wildling in the wind, shaping shadows that twisted into ghastly faces, grotesque in their agony. "Mia!" she cried again, but the shadows swallowed her voice, laughing and writhing like something alive. "Stay back!" Ethan's shrill warning cut through the mockery, and Jessica turned just in time to see him take a step away from her, feet poised like he was about to run. Fear knotted in her stomach. "No, Ethan! Come back!" rushed out of her mouth, panic igniting again. His resolve hardened, his small body shaking yet determined. The creature seemed to feed off their fear, momentarily stilled as if considering them. The air grew thick and suffocating, the flames turning scarlet, pulsing like a beating heart. Jessica felt her resolve wavering, her desire to save Mia battling against an insatiable fear of what might happen next. With a surge of energy, she lurched forward. Every step felt like each foot was trapped in mud and dreams. Yet she had to choose. Risk it all or succumb to the dark and lose not just Mia but Ethan too. But within herself, she found a flicker, a memory of laughter, light, and safety. She had to harness it. Stay close, she shouted, pulling Ethan back toward her. We move as one. And then, with everything she had, Jessica charged ahead through the fiery glow. The creature lunged, snarling, but she was fueled by sheer will. She wouldn't let them take her children. Not like this. They were nearly there, just 2 more strides. The warmth of the flames enveloped her, the growls transformed into a terrible scream. What Jessica didn't expect was the monster's hand crashing down, blocking their escape, forcing them into a moment of tense anticipation. In a deafening silence that swallowed everything, she faced the creature with burning resolve. But behind the beast, shadows writhed, and there was something else in the depths, waiting to break free. Would they emerge intact from the blaze, or would they all be consumed? Jessica's heartbeat echoed in her ears, blending with the sounds of the dark, now truly alive and yearning. The creature's breath rolled over Jessica, thick and sour, like a forgotten grave. In its glow, she could see the firelight flicker against leathery skin that shifted and shimmered, making it look like it was melting into the shadows. Each rasping inhale felt like the world was drawing tighter, squeezing out any remaining light, any hope she clung to. Mia! She shouted, voice trembling but fierce, as she took another step forward despite the dread pulling at her legs. The flames danced around her, anarchic and chaotic, a ruddy ballet of destruction. They flickered with darkened luminescence, revealing an even deeper terror lurking just beneath the surface. Mommy! Mia's voice echoed again, a shriek that sliced through the oppressive air. Jessica's heart tore at the sound. How could anyone be so far away yet so close? Ethan tugged at her, his grip flimsy and desperate. Please let us go back. He looked up at her, those big eyes hazed over with confusion and fear. No! She yelled, this time firm but anxious. We can't let it win. It's feeding off us. But the realization shot through her like lightning, this thing knew them. It knew their worst fears, their failures laid bare. Its laughter twisted her insides, not mocking just them but ripping open wounds she thought had healed. Ethan's whimper broke through. Mia! She called again, desperation igniting new strength. I'm coming! Hold on! The creature shifted again, its form languid and unnatural, maintaining an unsettling grace among the cracks of firelight. Jessica's focus blurred, every flicker, every face imprinted on her mind echoed how desperately she wanted to save her children. She couldn't falter, not now. But as she pushed onward, shadows coagulated behind the monster, oozing out like ink spilling into water. They morphed into shapes representing loss, abandonment, everything the creature thrived on. Ghostly figures came alive, each one a whisper of past mistakes, victims to the void. They laughed a sickening, disjointed melody, fusing their agony into a hypnotic chant, something that made Jessica bleed inside. Suddenly, the air crackled. It switched from suffocating to electric, sending chills along her spine. The creature cocked its head, its eyes narrowing almost inquisitively, as if trying to decipher her next move. Stay behind me! She yelled to Ethan, determination surging through her limbs. There was nothing left to lose, she had to do this. Pumped with a flood of adrenaline, she changed her trajectory. She leaped sideways, breaking out of the creature's direct line of sight. It let out a deep, thunderous growl that wrapped around her like chains, vibrating in her bones. And then silence. The deep rumble ceased, replaced by rustling whispers, as though the creature was confused by her sudden change. Jessica seized the moment. Ethan, run! For a heart-stopping second, they broke into a sprint. The world around them began to crumble, flames licking at their heels, the shadows lunging forward. The images of her worst fears screamed through her mind, urging her to falter, but she couldn't. There was only forward. But as they rounded a corner, she froze. Love motifs sprawled in the smoke, twisted mirrors reflecting memories of laughter and joy, and there that S where Mia was. Mia! They shouted together, launching forward again, desperate, hopeful. But before they could reach her, the creature swooped down, impossibly fast, impeding their way with the sweep of its monstrous limbs. The dark shadow loomed larger, and Jessica felt the raw essence of fear spike again. "Mia!" The cry ripped from her chest as the shadows erupted. Something was pulling her child deeper into the darkness, and she was almost out of time. A howl emanated from the creature as it prepared to strike. Jessica had to choose: would she give in to her fears or fight through them to save her daughter? She could feel the pull of the darkness. It was stronger. It wanted them to fail. But what if, maybe deep down, she was more powerful than it knew? With an unwavering scream, she charged directly at its monstrous form, the fire around her catching like a windswept inferno. Would she tear through the darkness, or would she be swallowed whole? Mia's terrified gaze met hers, eyes wide, and Jessica's heart raced with a certainty that kindled the last of her strength. And then she lunged, desperate to rescue her beloved child, but the shadows shifted ominously again. A new threat writhed among them. What new horror awaited as the dark chimed with laughter? Would she find her way to Mia, or would they both vanish into oblivion? With a surge of adrenaline, Jessica barreled forward, her heart roaring in her chest like a runaway train. The creature loomed before her, its eyes flickering like dying embers. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to flee from the suffocating presence, but the cry of her child pierced through the layers of terror clinging to her mind. "Help me, Mommy!" Mia's voice echoed desperately. That small, fragile sound ignited a wildfire of motivation deep in Jessica's soul. She dove into the heart of the darkness, mustering every ounce of courage she could grasp. Fear morphed into a primal force, giving her strength. "Mia! I'm coming!" she shouted, lunging toward the shifting shadows. The roaring flames encircled her like a protective cocoon, igniting the air with clarity. For that fleeting moment, she saw her daughter clearly amidst the chaos, trapped in ghostly hands trying to pull her away. Their fingers entwined, shadows breaking apart under Jessica's fiery resolve. "Let go of my daughter!" she roared, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fierce love. Power surged through her as the dark laughter twisted and writhed, weakening against her defiance. Jessica pounded toward Mia, eyes aflame with determination. As she approached, the oppressive figure of the creature lurched, attempting to stand in her way, but the light of Jessica's will pushed it back. She dove to scoop up Mia in her arms, spinning to shield her from the shadowy grasp that threatened to swallow them whole. "Ethan! We're here!" she cried, reaching for her son just as he raced toward her, heart pounding. In that chaotic moment, they were united, a trio forged in love and survival. "We need to leave! Now!" Jessica hollered, gripping both children tightly as the flames writhed behind them, forcing their escape. "Mommy, the shadows!" Mia whimpered. "I see them, honey! Hold my hand tight!" They moved together, the light from the flames guiding their frantic steps through the swirling darkness. The laughter crescendoed around them, desperate and echoing with anger, but it lessened with each forward stride they made. The path before them twisted and turned, shadows snapping at their heels, but Jessica pushed ahead, the warmth of her children a beacon against the chilling terror. They entered a tunnel carved from the darkness, the shadows swirling behind them in a frenzy, still seeking to reclaim their lost prey. "Keep running," Jessica urged, her breath coming in frantic bursts. The darkness was alive, but their bond felt stronger. They emerged into a wider space, and suddenly, the night outside flickered into view. Moonlight flooded in, a pure, beautiful contrast against the grimy shadows. They could almost taste freedom on their lips. But behind them, a sinister growl reverberated, reminding them the darkness was still lurking, waiting for a weakness. "It's right behind us!" Ethan yelled, gripping tight to Jessica's hand. The trio sprinted toward the light, their feet pounding against the damp ground. With every ounce of strength left in her body, Jessica cried, "Run faster!" Just as she burst through the entrance, the creature roared in outrage behind, rattling the very bones of the earth. But as they crossed the threshold, its monstrous shadow seemed to falter, struggling to breach the light that surged behind them like a solid wall. Don't look back, she commanded, and her heart soared as they broke into the open air, the night alive with the sounds of nature replacing the laughter that had haunted them. Outside, they collapsed in a heap, breathless and trembling, the warmth of the moonlight bathing them like a gentle embrace. Tears filled Jessica's eyes as she hugged her children. "We made it! We made it!" The words tumbled out, raw and euphoric. Mia's voice broke through her fog of relief. "Mommy, what about the monster?" "We did it together," Ethan said, and Jessica nodded, holding them tighter. And as they huddled together, the shadows receded. The darkness that had once felt all-consuming now felt like a distant memory. "We're safe now," Jessica reassured them, needing to believe it. As they prepared to walk away, an unsettling chill crept back into her heart. She turned, glancing at the thick woods, the ghosts of their ordeal lingering. It wouldn't just fade away that easily, would it? But for now, she resolved to block out what used to haunt her, to focus on the futures they could create together, beyond the shadows. "Let us go home," she whispered, guiding her children away. The moon hung high, illuminating their path together. They'd leave the darkness behind, finally reclaiming the peace that had eluded them for so long. In the end, the bonds of love won against the chaos, illuminating their future. And with each breath taken, they knew they could face whatever came next together, forevermore. Now, hold on. This is the moment to show your support. If you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm, and keep these intense tales alive. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. I want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion too. Let us keep building this amazing community together.